Hey, good evening and welcome to Freedom Speech and You. And we're coming to you live from our virtual recreation of Wes's living room. So hang in there, sending one last social media post to let people know that we are on. So hang in there 1 second. Say hello to each other as I do that. Okay. Good. It went out. And that's done. All right. Welcome. Welcome to Freedom Speech and You. I'm your host, Ken. We have topics for you tonight. Let me just read them off real quick. So they're all over here on my other computer. So first topic comes from Meet the Press, and they titled it Leaving the DNC. So that's going to deal with Christian cinema. We're going to talk about her. Brittany Griner is home. We're going to talk about the way that someone was traded for her. There's a possibility of a Trump criminal referral. We're going to talk about that from the Jan 6 Commission. We're going to talk about Carrie Lake's petition. And we're going to talk about House Republicans that flipped their votes on the same-sex marriage bill. Those are the minimum 5 topics, but we will get into more topics because we will get into your topics. So let's start by talking about who we have here. How come there's no audio? Should be audio. Audio. Check 1, 2, 3, 4. There's audio. There's level. If you don't have audio, you need to check your YouTube. If you have no audio, check your YouTube, please. Okay. As I was saying, we're going to say hello to whoever's here. So let me scroll back in chat. So we have Human F Being. Welcome to the broadcast. We have the Guitar Rabbi, but our mods will determine whether you stay or don't stay. Don't recognize you. We have a few people that are probably going to get in trouble with the mods. I will let the mods decide that. That's the mods' discretion. Phantom Dennis, welcome. Robin Brazel, welcome. Aaron West, welcome. Blue Dem 1488, welcome. I think I said Phantom Dennis already. We have Wes Webb, whose living room we're borrowing here virtually, and Andrea Brower is here. So these are our regulars, and Rosebud is here. Welcome. So welcome, everyone. Okay, so we got the welcomes out of the way. All right. So on to the topics. So that is already ready to go. Okay, now, what did they call it again? Let me just refer to my thing. Meet the Press on NBC called it Leaving the DNC. So they were talking about why she might have left the DNC. This is not Meet the Press. This is 538, which I believe is... hang on 1 second. I will not 538 publication. I would rather know who it is than guess. Okay, it's Nate Silver's publication. Okay, good. I looked it up because I would have said the wrong person. Okay. So this is Nate Silver's publication, and the author of the article, let me get it where I can see it, and you can see it. So let's make it at least double size. Is Jeffrey Sheckley, Skelley. And this article is from 2 days ago. and talks about why Kristen Sinema left the Democratic Party. Goes into the detail of, do we all remember when Democrats gave 51 seats, when the runoff gave 51 seats to the U.S. Senate? Well, Kristen Sinema said, not so fast, my friend. And 2 days ago, she said she would change her party registration to independent and no longer identify as a Democrat moving forward, which made the Senate makeup become 49 Republicans, 48 Democrats, and 3 independents. The article continues, though, that this switch doesn't necessarily change the Senate's voting math because she says she intends to mostly align with the Democrats and keep her committee assignments from that party, which Chuck Schumer said he had agreed to honor. Excuse me. So alongside with Senators Angus King of Maine and Bernie Sanders of Vermont, she appears to give the party 51 seats when it comes to organizational questions, allowing them to hold majorities on committees. Considering that she may not alter her legislative habits, why did she make this decision? Her re-election outlook in 2024 may help explain her move, although her centrist attitudes likely played some role. A lot of people simply, I'm going to distance from the article, but a lot of people simply just thought that, she wanted to basically say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not a rubber stamp for all things Democrat. So to some, her party switch might come as a surprise considering her moderate reputation. After all, she has the second most conservative voting record in the Senate among Democrats, according to roll call from voteview.com, with only West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin coming in to her right. Since joining the Senate, she's taken public stances against Democratic efforts to abolish the filibuster. Along with Manchin, pushed her party to sharply reduce the outlays in budgetary legislation. Her positions have infuriated many Arizona Democrats, and the state party formally censured her over her 2020 vote to retain the filibuster, which helped block Democratic efforts to pass voting rights legislation. Her tendency to split from the party probably doesn't explain her decision by itself. If that were the case, we might expect Manchin to have switched parties as well. In his study of party switches from 50 to 2014, political scientist Anton Yoshinaka found that a member of Congress's voting record didn't do a good job of predicting party switches on its own, even though party switchers were more likely to be out of sync with their party ideologically. He found that ideological disagreement usually had to occur alongside a desire to run for higher office or to gain a more valuable committee post to produce a greater likelihood of changing parties. She, however, is already in a high office as a senator. A presidential build as a centrist independent seems unlikely, though we shouldn't rule that out. And if she votes similarly to how she was previously, it won't be as if she made a full-on party switch to the GOP and received a plum committee assignment as part of the deal. But there's a solid chance that her electoral outlook played into her decision-making process. So the article writer thinks that she did this to run for president. She hasn't said whether she plans to run for re-election, but there's little question that her tendency to break with her former party has outraged much of the Democratic base that helped put her in the Senate in the first place. A Suffolk University, Arizona Republic poll of the state in September found that Democratic likely voters viewed her quite negatively, with 49% holding an unfavorable opinion and 30% a favorable one. Facing a potential primary challenge on her left from a Democratic representative, Ruben Gallego, Sinema stood a real chance of losing renomination if she sought re-election as a Democrat. She might have been in trouble against a more center-left Democrat, too, like Greg Stanton. Tellingly, the study found the prospect of facing a highly competitive primary in one's own party can play into leaving the party. So Her chance of winning a Democratic primary were mediocre at best. It's unclear how much stronger her path would be as an independent. It's hard to imagine Republicans deciding not to field a major candidate against Sinema, even if she's an independent, but it's possible she's hoping that the potential complications of a three-way race discourage a high-profile Democrat from running. In that scenario, perhaps Democrats line up behind her in a head-to-head race against a Republican. Let me drink. Gallego has already responded to Sinema's switch by sending out fundraising texts that say he's considering a Senate run. So now Sinema might be able to put together a mishmash coalition of Democrats, Republicans, and independents to win a three-way contest. After all, the Suffolk poll found that Republican likely voters also had a slightly more positive view of her than Democrats, with 35% favorable, 40% unfavorable, while independent voters had net positive attitudes, 42% favorable, 27% unfavorable. She could attract plurality support in Democrats and Republicans if the opposition is too far left or too far right. So she's probably just weighing her reelection stance, is what this article is basically suggesting at. And, so she's just thinking about where she's going to be politically. I mean, you could read the rest of the article. This article goes into who exactly has changed parties. So here's a little graph in the article, who switched Sinema from Democrat to Independent, Specter from Republican to Democrat, he lost the primary. Joe Lieberman, Democrat to Independent, he got reelected. Jim Jeffords retired. Bob Smith lost his primary. Ben Nighthorse Campbell reelected. Richard Shelby reelected. Harry Byrd reelected. Strom Thurmond was reelected. Wayne Morse was reelected. So if you look at that statistically, it's not exactly a bad thing to do politically. So again, there's plenty there to look at in that article. There's plenty to look at. My initial reaction was, she just basically told the Democratic Party to kiss her ass. She's not going to kowtow to them. And she, symbolically probably made the Republicans happy. I don't know. Maybe not. Okay, so next story. Next story is Brittany Griner coming home, which the Republicans are having a field day because they don't think that she's worth trading for. Okay, scale this again. So Victor Bout was traded for Brittany Griner. Who is Victor Bout? The Russian prisoner in the U.S. traded for Brittany Griner. And, like I said, the Republicans are going crazy about all this. He's the Russian who's the world's most notorious arms dealer in the 1990s and early 2000s. He was serving a 25-year prison sentence in Illinois before being freed as part of a U.S.-Russia swap. And this story was published in July. So they must have talked about him back then. They updated it because he was traded. So they talk about him, and they say where most people saw chaos, he saw opportunity. He was a 55-year-old Russian, the world's most notorious arms dealer, convicted in 2011, sent to prison. It's my mouse. It's just being okay. And on Thursday, he was freed in exchange for U.S. basketball star Brittany Griner, who'd been held in Russia for the past 10 months. The Biden administration also was seeking to free another prison American, Paul Whelan, but he was not part of the swap and remains jailed in Russia. I don't know what the article. Good evening, Jolie, and welcome to the broadcast. And good evening, Harley Prairie Chicken. Okay, welcome. She was traded for him. People wanted to in the White House, try to get Paul Whelan out. We may have to go to a separate article to know who Paul Whelan is, if you're not familiar yet with that part of the story. But this dude was in his 20s when he was brought into the Soviet Union. Soviet Union fractured in 1991, leaving vast quantities of Soviet military hardware scattered across 15 newly minted countries. Most all of them were ill-equipped to pay their troops to keep track of all the weapons they just inherited. Almost anything was available for a price. Trained by the Soviet military as a linguist, Bout began acquiring Soviet military transport planes and loaded them up with weapons. He sold them all over the world, and various reports linked him to wars in Afghanistan, Angola, Congo, Lebanon, Somalia, Yemen, and more. He was entrepreneurial, not ideological, selling to governments that were fighting rebels and to rebels who were fighting governments. Separating fact from fiction has often been difficult when documenting his work, but many reports said he even sold arms to both sides of the same conflict. He always denied he was selling weapons, claiming he was flying flowers and frozen chickens to some of the world's most violent places. He was always hard to pin down, but he lived openly in Moscow, traveled widely, occasionally spoke to reporters, and seemed to welcome at least some of the attention. He became so notorious that Hollywood made a 2005 movie loosely based on his life called The Lord of War, starring Nicolas Cage. This photo that is in the article is American basketball player Brittany Griner. This is her arriving at court in Moscow on June 27th. And she's the one who was freed Thursday. So, okay, said already that he was nicknamed the Merchant of Death. Despite facing international sanctions and threats of arrest, he managed to stay a step ahead of law enforcement until 2008 when he was captured in a sting operation in Thailand organized by U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency. The Thais extradited, it's extradited because I thought it was extricated, so extradited is what it says in the article. Bout to the U.S. 2 years later, where he was charged with conspiring to kill Americans. He was convicted in Manhattan court in 2011 and received a 25-year sentence. He was serving in Marion, Illinois. So why did the Russia want him back? He made his money selling weapons that had been intended for use in Soviet military and successor countries. When CIA Director William Burns asked this question in July, he said succinctly, "That's a good question because he's a creep." Dan Hoffman, a former CIA officer who served in Russia, said Putin's motives should be viewed through the lens of his ongoing battle with the U.S. And he said, as I quote, "Every opportunity he gets, Vladimir Putin wants to show that he can go toe-to-toe with Russia's main enemy, and it's a real good public relations move for him to show that he's taking care of his own," end quote. So U.S. and Russia have a history of working deals to gain the return of their own citizens. In April, the U.S. released a Russian pilot convicted of conspiring to bring drugs into the U.S., and Russia freed Trevor Reed, a former Marine who had been convicted of assaulting a Moscow police officer. More commonly, the countries kicked out suspected spies in tit-for-tat deals. So this is the other guy that the U.S. wanted to get out in this photo. American Paul Whelan, who was arrested in Russia in 2008 and charged with espionage, stand inside the defendant's cage as he waited his verdict in 2020. He was convicted then and sentenced for 16 years. Okay, the article continues, but the current negotiations appear uneven in some respects. U.S. would be freeing a convicted arms smuggler who operated on a national scale for close to 2 decades. And this is why the Republicans are up in arms about this, because they say that Brittany Griner, to them, is not worthy of trading for this criminal. After all, to the Republicans, you know, their feeling is that the only reason Brittany Griner was traded is because it was political, that Brittany Griner is a member of the LGBTQ community, and the Republicans believe that she was traded simply for that because Biden wanted to bring her back to make his marriage bill look good, and that's the only reason. Ultimately, what their voters think is their voters think this is somebody we don't like. We don't like her politics. We don't like her way of life. They'd just as soon she'd stay there and rot in jail because they don't adhere to the idea that everybody should be able to live their life. Okay, the article does continue, and it says, Griner, at age 32, is a pro basketball star who's pleaded guilty to leaving hashish oil in her suitcase at a Moscow airport in February. Whelan is 52, a former Marine who traveled openly in Russia for years and was arrested in 2018 and convicted on espionage charges in a secret trial. Hoffman said this summer he supported the efforts to win the release of the Americans. He said, quote, these are dirty deals, but there's 2 bad options. One is letting Americans get sick and potentially even worse in jail, and the other one is make essentially a dirty deal. If it's me, I'll get my U.S. citizens out, end quote. We always get our citizens out. So back in July, Blinken said he had presented a plan to Russia for the return of the 2 Americans, though he did not mention Bout by name. Russians were initially cool to the offer in their public statements, which shows signs of interest in dealing more recently. This prisoner swap signals that 2 countries can still do business on some level despite the terrible state of relations and the backdrop of the war in Ukraine, where Americans are a leading arms supplier to Ukrainians. But analysts say there's no real prospect with the overall atmosphere, which has been going from bad worse, likely to improve. So this article by Greg Meyer in NPR doesn't really get into the other details, the whys, the wherefores. For those of you that watch Hal Sparks like I do, Hal theorized that it's likely that Putin wants to get this guy back so that he can punish him for what he did in terms of selling the military assets that Russia could otherwise use right now to fight their war against the Ukraine. So, that's a possibility that he simply wants him back so that he can punish him for that, so he can kill him himself. Our next article is in regards to the Trump criminal referral. This is also one of those things that they mentioned at the start of Meet the Press. So basically, I watched the start of Meet the Press this morning and saw their headlines and thought, yeah, I'll do my own take on what they're talking about today, what their headlines are. So that's what you're seeing. So let me present that. So I have no idea what they said on that show. Maybe you do. Maybe you can tell me later in chat. But I know that they were talking about this topic. This article is from The Hill. All right, why is it not scrolling? Come, oh, wrong screen. Okay, there we go. So this is from this morning. It's from 10:55 a.m. Eastern Time. It's by Rachel Scully. It's called Kinzinger Won't Say If Trump Included in Jan 6 Criminal Referrals. And you see this upper headline says Sunday talk show. So maybe they'll talk about what the talk show said. We'll see together. Adam Kinzinger, the Republican from Illinois, a member of the House of Representatives, on Sunday would not reveal whether former President Trump will be included in the list of criminal referrals to the Department of Justice put forward by the House Select Committee investigating the Jan 6, 2021 insurrection. Okay, so they are going to talk about what happened on ABC this week. That's good. During an appearance on ABC this week, host Martha Raddatz asked if Trump, would be included in a list of criminal referrals. Kinzinger, who is one of two Republicans on that committee, replied he doesn't want to get too far ahead and wants to save the final decision for the committee. So we have video there. If you go to the Hill article, you can look at that video. I'm not going to air that video because it's ABC. They might get fussy about copyright. Kinzinger said, I don't think criminal referrals are pointless. I think the point of that is that it's very clear that DOJ has decided to take this effort up. I mean, there's no doubt. I don't know anything that you don't know on that. The criminal referrals themselves aren't necessarily something that is going to wake DOJ up to something they didn't know before, but I do think it will be an important symbolic thing that the committee can do, even more than symbolic. Just be very clear that Congress thinks, a crime has been committed here or that the DOJ should investigate it. Those are his words. The DOJ would make the ultimate decision on whether to charge anyone, the article continues. His comments come after multiple news outlets reported that the committee is considering making criminal referrals to the DOJ for Trump and at least 4 other individuals. Okay, good. They made that point because that was got me on this topic, is that the Jan 6 committee is convening to possibly make these criminal referrals for Trump and 4 of his cronies. So Chairman Bernie Thompson, Democrat, Mississippi, told reporters on Thursday that the committee will release its list of criminal referrals and its final report on the attack on December 21st. So we can look forward to the Jan 6 committee releasing that on December 21st. And that's probably all there is of that article. So we can look forward to those criminal referrals coming up. This is an interesting article in here. How old is that? 12-9. Ron DeSantis beats Trump in new primary poll. Trump approval dips after 2024 announcement. Interesting. So you might want to check that out on the Hill. Okay. So that was my first 3. This is the one that came in from Andrea. The 10 House Republicans who flipped their votes on the same-sex marriage bill. This is also a Hill article. Okay. Close the ad. So 10 who flipped their votes. Article is by Jared Gans. Articles from 3 days ago. The House has sent the Respect for Marriage Act to President Biden's desk after all Democrats and 39 Republicans in the body voted to support the bill. So we have a small video here. Let's stop that video and roll it back. Come on. Now we have an advertisement up. Hang in there, folks. See if we can get back to the video after the advertisement. Nope, went on to another video. All right, reload the page. That looks like a totally different video. You make that smaller. See if we can make it work. And just be patient, folks, because there's a video playing. We're about 5 seconds away from it finishing. If it starts the video, I will click it in.
When the Supreme Court took away federal abortion protections, many worried that same-sex marriage would be next.
The Supreme Court has put marriage equality in the crosshairs.
Senator Tammy Baldwin was the Senate's first openly gay member, and now she's a main sponsor of the bill, which requires same-sex marriages to be recognized under federal law. Senate Leader Chuck Schumer says this isn't just political.
It's personal as it gets for many senators and their staffs, myself included. My daughter and her wife are actually expecting a little baby in February.
On Wednesday, the bill passed a procedural vote in the Senate with the support of all 50 Democrats and 12 Republicans.
This is a good compromise. It's one that's based on mutual respect for our fellow Americans.
Republican Senators Tom Tillis and Rob Portman worked with Democrats to move the legislation forward and helped add an amendment to protect the rights of religious institutions.
It's an amendment that provides robust affirmative protections of people of faith without diminishing the rights for couples in same-sex marriages.
But many Republicans who oppose the bill, like Senator James Lankford, feel the amendment doesn't do enough.
If you're a faith-based individual and you have a difference of conscience about marriage, too bad.
Okay, they cut the audio on that, so it cut that was the actual end of the video. So let's go back to the article.
This is awesome, but
Unfortunately, the video is still playing, so let me stop the video, or else you're going to hear audio that makes no sense to what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's the article again. See if we can close that ad. All right. So, House sent Respect for Marriage Act to President Biden's desk after all Democrats and 39 Republicans and the body voted to support the bill. The legislation passed. There are the votes, 258 to 169, with one abstaining. Would equally officially repeal the Defense of Marriage Act and require states to recognize interracial and same-sex marriages lawfully performed in other states. So, House initially passed the bill in July before the Senate approved it last week, along with amendments to add protections for religious exemptions and to clarify that it does not recognize polygamy. The House then needed to approve the bill as amended, which it did on Thursday. Bill received some measure of bipartisan support in both houses of Congress, but several Republicans in the lower chamber voted in favor of the bill in July before opposing it on the second vote. While a couple originally opposed it before voting in favor of it. Here are these 10 House Republicans who flipped their votes on the same-sex marriage bill. So those who went from yes to no: Cliff Bentz of Oregon, Mario Diaz-Balart of Florida, and it gives the reasons why they did it. You want me to go into that level of detail? Brian Mast of Florida, Dan User of Pennsylvania, Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, Maria Salazar of Florida, Jeff Andrew of New Jersey, and those who went from no to yes: Mike Gallagher of Wisconsin, Jamie Herrera Butler of Washington. Okay, this person didn't abstain. This person went present, but saying present is pretty much the same. Burgess Owens of Utah. So those are the ones who changed. Now let's go in depth and say, why did they change their votes? So those who went from yes to no: Cliff Bentz of Oregon. He's not publicly explained why. Okay, so no reason why. Mario Diaz-Balart of Florida. He said in a statement on Monday that he planned to oppose the legislation because it lacked legitimate safeguards for faith-based organizations that object to the law based on their religious beliefs. Quote, the concepts of all states respecting other states' decision on marriage laws is deeply rooted in American jurisprudence and tradition. Similarly, our founders understood that religious liberties are sacred and vulnerable and must always be vigorously protected. What did Brian Mast say? Brian Mast of Florida. He expressed concerns over protection of religious freedom, said on the House floor that changes should be made to the text to protect the, quote, free exercise thereof, end quote, referring to the clause in the First Amendment of the Constitution protecting freedom of religion. He also criticized comments from Representative Mary Gay Scanlon of Pennsylvania, who said that amending the bill further would unsettle the Senate's carefully crafted compromise. Dan Meiser said from Pennsylvania that the bill goes beyond marriage and weakens religious freedoms fundamental to our nation. He voted against it on Thursday for that reason. He said the Senate's version of the bill includes language that puts religious freedom in jeopardy and opens organizations up to civil lawsuits like the House's version. Quote, therefore, I cannot support the Senate amendment to Respect of Marriage Act because it jeopardizes the basic religious liberties of every American, end quote. That was his statement. Scott Perry of Pennsylvania said his initial vote was a mistake. And he said it was rushed to the floor and he had just gotten to the floor as the vote was happening. So basically he said, my staff sucks and they couldn't do anything to tell me what the vote was about. No, just kidding. He said that he didn't read it. Quote, I knew I had a choice between voting against traditional marriage or voting against interracial marriage, he said. I just made the wrong choice. Maria Salazar said after the vote she was disappointed with the final version of the bill does not include, quote, full protections, end quote, for churches and Americans with, quote, sincerely held religious beliefs. She said Senate Republicans were prevented from including, quote, vital protections, end quote, for religious Americans in the bill. She said she voted for the first version that she believes in, quote, human dignity and respect for all, but laws just advance over one interest, ignore legal protections, and others should not be passed. Jeff Drew of New Jersey cited concerns about religious freedom protections and said he heard from many constituents who are upset with the bill and he found them persuasive. Those who changed from no to yes, Gallagher of Wisconsin, basically said that he was happy that it didn't permit polygamy. And he said, quote, the Respect for Marriage Act fixes the polygamy loophole in Speaker Nancy Pelosi's hastily written version and creates strong religious liberty protection for religious organizations, including schools, churches, and adoption agencies, end quote. So he's happy that they tidied up the polygamy issue. Jamie Herrera Butler didn't share a reason why. She switched from a no to a yes. And Representative Burgess Owens of Utah switched from a yes to present, said, while today is undoubtedly a giant step toward religious liberty, my lone present vote signals a warning beacon that the war is far from won, end quote. He said religious freedom cannot prevail unless individuals and small business owners have this explicit protection under law, yet that protecting churches and religious organizations is only scratching the surface of the scope of First Amendment rights. Okay, next topic from Andrea is the Kerry Lake petition. See if I can get an actual Kerry. Oops. Well, it'd be nice to type on the right keyboard. Kerry Lake Maricopa AZ petition. Okay. There we go. How long is this? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Wow, this thing is long. So maybe we can hit on the start of it. We won't have to go through the entire body of it. Does this have a body to it? Okay, it does have a body to it. Okay, so we'll start with that, which Andrea sent. Okay. Yep, I'm in Wesley's living room because we loaded that up. So this is what Andrea sent me. This is Carrie Lake Street. And LFG meeting. You know, it really gets me. People who constantly use these terms, and it's like, I'm supposed to know what all these terms mean. So I presume this means looking for group, which is what it's supposed to be. So, oh, Jim, I hope you're okay. Welcome to the broadcast. I hope you feel better. So looking for groups. She's looking for like-minded individuals on Twitter. And she says, election contest petitions filed at this window. And she's got her petition here that she's filed. And she puts in a thread to a tweet. She says, if the process was illegitimate, then so are the results. Hey, Casper, welcome. And hey, Jim, welcome. Furthermore, if the process was legitimate, then so are the results. Let's find out. So she wants to look at, and so somebody says, get in loser, we're going losing. So they have their reactions to her physical picture of her submission from December 9th of her petition. And you're wondering, what's in that? So what's in that? Let's take a small look at it. It's pretty long. So here we got the document, okay? Shows that it was received on December 9th, but Jeff Fine, clerk of the Superior Court, has the stamps. Cost of filing the action, has the lawyer's name, what the lawyer's address, all the lawyer's information, all that stuff. And so can we get this? I guess that's what it's doing. So it says, the eyes of the country are on Arizona. On November 30th, Rasmussen reporters published a poll of likely list voters asking about Election Day problems with vote tabulation in Maricopa County. This poll asked whether responding voters agreed or disagreed with Carrie Lake's statement calling the election, quote, botched, and stating, quote, this isn't about Republicans or Democrats. This is about our sacred right to vote, right that many voters were sadly deprived of on, in parentheses, Election Day, November 8th, end quote. The results of the poll are stunning. 70% to 72% of likely voters said they agree with Lake's statement, including 45% who strongly agree. But note, dear viewer, that Rasmussen polls are conducted by Republicans. So their bias is Republican. They go and they try to say the facts preclude Arizona's vote totals canvassed on December 5th from being used to determine the next governor of Arizona. They cite Finley versus Sorensen, which held that mistakes, omissions, and irregularities in conduct of election may void the result. She's accusing this Secretary of State Hobbs of rampant and clear violations of federal and state law. It's jumping ahead, okay? But she's saying that there was chaos, that the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors Chairman Bill Gates submitted on live TV during a press conference held shortly after Election Day. Republicans voted a 3-to-1 ratio over Democrats on Election Day and were just disproportionately and adversely affected. So she's whining about the way that the vote was collected on Election Day, the supposed problems with the election system on Election Day. And she's whining about the rejections of thousands of ballots. She's saying that 15,603 to 29,257 Republican voters were disenfranchised from voting based on voting machine failures. And she's saying that there was voting fraud because she says that she's going back to that same statement about the 2000 presidential election and the identified voting fraud back then. So she's going back 22 years again, which the Republicans constantly do and act like nothing has changed in 22 years, which it has. She submits things about the supposed ballot submitted. She says that the 72% of voters in this poll, because they don't believe that the election can be trusted, it's a wake-up call. Never mind the fact that the poll doesn't accurately measure what real voters did, because polls never do. Never mind the fact that the poll only gets data from people who actually answer the poll or that are actually called or requested to give an answer to the poll. So she goes into the details of the court. So this thing is on and on and on and on and on. Let me scale it back down to 100% so it won't just rattle by. And I will see if I can get to the end of it. Okay, how many? Unfortunately, when I put it on presentation mode, I can't like take it back to. But I mean, just even if you can't read all this, you can see like it's a fairly lengthy document. I mean, it was more than 15 pages. So it's just big, long document making her claim that there was voter fraud. Okay. So tonight I've been presenting the 3 topics that I came with for the first hour and the 2 that Andrea came with. And I've said hello to you. but I haven't really talked about any topics that you've wanted to talk about. So let's see what we have here. So a couple of things that popped up in chat earlier. DeSantis can't run for president unless he resigns as governor. I have to check the law on that, but it's probably true. She also goes on to say he's trying to change that law. Hopefully he doesn't. Wes Webb likes the show so far. That was earlier. That was about 8:38 my time. It's now 9:02. In regards to the faith-based comments, faith-based could mean many things. Yes, that's one of the problems, because then anybody could say, this is my religion, and that's why I don't want to agree to your laws. In regards to the bill passing, Robin said he was glad it passed. We're hoping that Jolie is okay. She burnt her finger tonight by picking up the wrong item. Be careful, Jolie. Wes Webb asked a entertainment question whether people have heard about Boston Legal. I've heard the title. I haven't watched it. Aaron is watching cats tonight instead of dogs. Aaron responds to West and says that's a good show to watch. So does Andrea. So does Casper. Not sure what that's about. We did have others this earlier who said something about audio issues, so I don't know if YouTube's having audio issues. I'll have to look into that. We have a lot of votes for Boston Legal. Jim said that he lost his balance. We wish Jim well. Hope he's feeling okay very soon. Jim says he hurts a lot. So again, Jim, we hope you heal soon. Human F Being said recommended ice packs. Jim said he's hurting pretty bad. Oh no. In regards to the Carrie Lake story, Robin said Carrie Lake is being a horrible person. And Andrea is under the weather this evening, and Casper told her he hopes she's feeling better. We all hope that Andrea is feeling better soon. If you don't understand the American colloquialism, under the weather is a way of saying one is sick. Andrea has had stomach crud all day due to things that happen to you with certain foods. In response to the Carrie Lake story, Anders said Carrie Lake is a sore loser. I think so. Jim is improvising with frozen vegetables. Good call, Jim. Andrea says, pray for Cher. Her mother passed away today. She was especially close to her. We will do that. So we're caught up on chat. That's what's been happening in chat. And thank you to our wonderful mods for keeping chat clear of the people that want to come into chat and just cause chaos. We have the best mods on this show. I love them. You love them. So show the mods your love. Good evening, Kinky Streets, and welcome to the broadcast. Okay, bear with me while I open another bottle because my throat is dry tonight. Not exactly sure why. I don't know if it's the foods that I ate or probably the medicines I've been taking. Excuse me. Okay, now, not too much. We went through all those topics rather quick. We started late tonight because I had a scheduling conflict. I had other things I had to do today. Plus, I had an early day. Good evening, Benny Loco. Welcome to the broadcast. There is definitely some other things to go over, though, that were not put in the posted topics. So let me do that. So let's see. I'll have to see if I'm logged in on this. Actually, probably would be better if I went to that social site instead. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm gonna do this on the other computer because this has a different social account. Okay, so I'm gonna do it on this computer. Do. Change to the other account so I can quickly find it. Hang on a second. I'm just going to let this play. And you'll get to see it here in a minute. So hang in there. I got a video for you, but shuttling it because the way that YouTube posted it is difficult. Because I recorded it vertically, and so YouTube recorded it as a YouTube short. Okay, so now I got it where I want it. Okay, and also, let's see, where can I find that? It's on my Twitter, so I'll show you the picture first. It's on my Twitter. because some of you are not on Twitter, so you wouldn't have seen it yet. Okay, and something just came in from Andrea, so we'll have that too. So hang on. So first, from Twitter. This is my photo from this morning from Twitter. And it's not very easily discernible. But this morning I watched the rocket launch, okay? The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket launch. And to film the rocket launch, I finished out the film that I had started using when I was going to cover the Artemis mission. And so that's roughly about, I think it's been about a month ago. And did that. And so I finally finished out that film. I took pictures of the rocket launch. This is the rocket landing. So I say in my tweet, I did not get one photo during the, I did get one photo during the Falcon 9 Stage 1 landing. I forgot I took this before starting the video recording. So I did this, I got this photo. So this is not the morning sun coming up. This is the rocket Stage 1 landing, returning. And I tried desperately to try to look straight up at it and take a photo, but that just didn't work. I couldn't, you want to take a photo straight up and you don't have a telescoping camera, you pretty much probably need to like use your mobile device like this. I'm going to full screen myself for a second. You want to probably use your mobile device like this and face it upward and like try to take a selfie picture of the rocket going over your head, because you probably could hold it up to your body and stabilize it and maybe do that. I didn't think to do that. I'll try that next time. But what I did get is as the rocket came into view and started to come in for the landing, I did get this picture. So you can't really tell that this is a rocket because this is how bright it comes out when you take a picture with iPhone. But after snapping this picture and going, okay, I'm not just going to keep taking pictures because they're all going to look like this, I switched to video. And when I switched to video, then I got this. So when I switched to video, I got this. Okay, now let's see what I can do to make that bigger. Probably full screen it. Let me see. What does that look like? Okay, so that's full screen. Not going to be super, super big. So I'll probably play it more than once. So click this. Now, again, I bring myself up full screen. It's extremely difficult for somebody my age with my hands. You can see them wiggling to hold a camera straight up and try to film the rocket that, as it came back after it separated into what happens with SpaceX, where stage one, the lower stage that gets it off the Earth, is going, continues upward as stage two on top releases and appears to fall as it curves with the Earth's atmosphere. It's not actually falling. It's just that to your naked eye, it appears to fall because it's curving and going away from you. One is still going up, and then it shuts off and starts to teeter fall back. If you can see it, you can see them appear to do this. You can see them separate. If you can see it, like in the daylight, if it's clear, you can actually see them move apart as little dots. They move apart. If that works, if you can see all the effect, you could see it. And if you have a camera set up appropriately, or if you're using a telescoping camera, you can follow all that. When you can't follow all that, or if you can't see it because it's obscured by the night sky, because there's a cloud up there in the night sky somewhere that totally obscures it, then you see it separate, the flash as they separate, but you start to lose the rest of the motion of the rockets. Like you could, because the stage two is continuing on, you might see it continue on, but you might not see stage one coming back because it's coming back across the horizon. So that was the case in the early morning hours this morning. It came back, you couldn't see it. You could hear it. You can hear rumble, 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 rumble as it rumbles its way through the crowd. Through the clouds. It's making a rumble, almost like the rumble of thunder. And it's rumbling through the crowds on, again, I'm saying it wrong. My brain is saying clouds. Out of my mouth is coming crowds. Sorry. Dry throat is a problem. It's rumbling through the clouds. You can hear it coming back. You keep looking for it. And eventually, one lady saw it overhead. She says, "It's over our heads." And we saw it over our heads. And there it was, the fire of the engines firing. And it, to the human who doesn't know where it's got to go back, would think, oh, it's right over my head. It's going to come straight down. No, it's firing its engines, slowing its return, and it's still coming back to come back and come down. Okay? So as it comes down and it gets within a certain distance from the Earth, like any other rocket or moon lander, any rocket-based craft, any capsule-based craft that's firing its engines to slow itself down as it's coming down, it's got to fire its engines. So it's firing its engine. I get the picture as it fires its engines. And then I go, well, this looks like just a blob. I'm not going to keep taking pictures, as I said. So I switched to video, which I did. And let me expand this. So let me figure out how to bring that down. And let me scale expand it, because there's no need to really see all of it. And the other thing that I want you to do, again, if you didn't hear it the first time, is to hear, this is exactly what it sounds like. So that's the wind. That's my tripod trying to fall over because it's a lightweight tripod. That's the sonic boom as the sound reaches you. And that's not just the wind, that's the one rumble of the rocket. Now, the other day, there was a rocket launch, and it took place at 5:27 in the afternoon local time. And it took off, and it also went southward. And I could see it leave. I could see the rocket launch go. I could see it leave, go on. It continued on. It headed on its way where it was going. And that was for OneWeb. And incidentally, the one this morning was the Hakuto RM1, which is a moon mission, coupled with what they call the lunar flashlight. So this is a Japanese automated moon lander that was on this morning's mission, and a mission protocol that has to do with proofing certain aspects regarding going to the moon for humans, and the gateway, which NASA is going to build around the moon to allow rockets to leave Earth, go to the moon, land on the moon, do things on the moon, go through the gateway, go on the way to Mars. So supposedly that has something to do with this morning's mission. Okay, so we have 3 things that came in from Andrea. But the only other thing I want to mention to you about the rockets is when I get my film developed, I will hopefully have good pictures of Artemis. I will hopefully have some good pictures of other missions and more things to show you. And if I don't have really spectacular pictures of rockets, I really, really cross my fingers and hope that the pictures that I took of the moon on the night that Artemis launched, and the full moons that occurred since, I really hope those come out, because those make me very happy to have good pictures of the moon. So on to the topics that Andrea sent in. So let me forward these over to the other computer so I can read your chat at the same time. Or maybe, depending on how long they are, I might just bring them up quick. Okay. Yeah, I think I can bring this one up quick without forwarding. Okay. So can we do this? That's on there. Can we scale it up full? It's not big enough. So Spiro's Ghost on Twitter says, very stable genius alert. Impressive loose use of all caps, a sign of the stablest genius possible. Hashtag unhinged. Donald Trump, his Truth Social. So Donald Trump on Truth Social. I'm not going to do the voice tonight because I have a rough, scratchy voice. How can the January 6th on-select committee make criminal referrals when they haven't spoken about or studied those that rigged the 2020 election, the troops not being brought in by Pelosi, or now the election fraud determinatively revealed by Twitter? These are the real criminals, says Trump. So that's Trump's assertion. Okay, so that's one topic that she sent in. Let's see if this is also a quick one. Okay, that's an article. So that one I'll send to myself for the other computer. And this one, This one a quick one or another one? Okay, so this is a quick one. And I'm going to go back to this one again, and we're going to discuss this one, which I brought up earlier. So that's still scaled. Yes. Okay. So what are your feelings on this? What are your feelings on Trump's continuing this business about the 2020 election? And his things about troops not being brought in by Pelosi. I guess he's referring to what? What is he? He's saying that he's still talking about that she didn't bring in the National Guard when that was his job, or the election fraud that he claims that is revealed by Twitter. I mean, what do you feel about this crap? Benny Loco says she's sick of it. How about the rest of you? Human F Being says I require proof. Yes, me too. Y'all have any more opinions? Any more opinions on that one? How do I feel about it? Benny Loco says he needs to go. That's what I feel about it by any means possible. Yeah, but don't get yourself arrested. He's not worth you getting arrested. I think what the Democrats should probably do is point to something that the Republicans said that had to be solved. So if I were the Republicans, I would if I were the Democrats, in response to the Republicans, what I would do is I would say, you're the people that pushed for Bush to be elected in 2000. You're the people that said that we couldn't recount this or that regards to Gore. You're the people who said that there had to be an answer to the election. But the Democrats don't really want to do that because the Democrats don't want to undermine the rule of law. So, you can't really do that. You have to have election rules. You have to have a defined time when you say that each election is resolved and the vote has to be counted and has to be turned in and certified. If you let them do this over and over again, we'd never get through any election. And again, what Trump doesn't realize is if you throw out the votes of 2020, he is not president. If you throw out the votes of 2020, Nancy Pelosi is the president. That's what he does not realize. He would not be president. Okay. The other one is the other one of the three that she sent at first. So let's see. Let's present this. So this is the other one about Trump. It's also been scaled. Okay. Trump confirms he turned down a Bout Whelan prisoner swap. Oddly, he says, I would have gotten Paul out, but didn't for 2 years of administration. So Trump says, I turned down a deal with Russia for a one-on-one swap for the so-called merchant of death for Paul Whelan. I wouldn't have made the deal for 100 people in exchange for someone that has killed untold numbers of people with his arms deals. I would have gotten Paul out, however, just as I did with a record number of other hostages. The deal for Griner is crazy and bad. The taking wouldn't have even happened during my administration, but if it did, I would have gotten her out fast. Okay, so he claims that he got other hostages out. Let's think about that. And Andrea sent another one, which I'm going to look and see. Is it another big one? Okay, this is a video, so I'd like to send that to myself as well to present it on the other computer so I can react appropriately. Okay. All right. So we have two coming in from Andrea. Trump thinks he's the mob. Yep, he does. Robin says he realized it. That's why he sent a mob. Wes says he does realize it. Human F being put on a thing. I put a spell on you. You know, it's interesting because Rush Limbaugh used to use that clip, or he used somebody singing that song, which is possibly the original composer. I'll look that up too. But he used to use that. And then the most interesting thing I find out about the most interesting thing I find about the former person known as Rush Limbaugh is that Limbaugh basically telegraphed the style of how Trump was going to talk throughout all his political career. Because everything that Limbaugh did on his show of accusing Democrats of this or that is all the same kind of tactics that Republicans use now, the same kind of tactics that Trump uses now. Whatever they're really doing, they accuse the other side of doing. So, did I close? Yeah, oops, I closed too many windows. Okay, let me open that. Okay, so making sure that I keep up with Andrea's incoming emails. Okay, so this one is called Hunter Biden Suing. It should be scaled appropriately. Bring this up on the presentation, and this comes to us from Andrea. This also comes via Mueller, she wrote. And I will send this one over too, so it'll be there. Got another one coming in from Andrea. Thank you so much to our producer, Andrea, who locates many of the stories that you see on tonight's show and every show every week. Okay, so Hunter Biden has floated the idea of suing for defamation. You see here Hunter Biden with his wife and family. This is a Washington Post article. Says some Hunter Biden allies making plans to go after his accusers facing GOP investigation. Some Hunter Biden allies want to aggressively target his accusers and tell a story, while others want to. This is in Washington Post. They want me to subscribe. Probably can't see anything without subscribing. Let's see, can we get around that? I probably can't read the article without subscribing, and I can't see how to get through there. So I probably can't read the article, but you can read the article if you have a Washington Post subscription. So let's try to find that on another source that's not blocking me. So let's steal the text from her tweet. And unfortunately, I closed too many windows again, so hang on. Where's my link? Okay. We have Newsweek, Washington Post. Maybe we can view it on Newsweek. Yep, we can view it on Newsweek. Okay, so far. So this is a Newsweek article instead of the Washington Post. Scale that to Biden could sue Fox News, Eric Trump, and Rudy Giuliani. There's a video there, but I don't know about that. The team working on combating potential legal battles brought against Hunter Biden floated possibility of bringing defamation suits against prominent GOP figures. So this quotes the Washington Post article, saying it posted an in-depth report on the growing effort to plan for potentially counteract the potential investigations into Hunter Biden once Republicans take control of the U.S. House in January. Biden, the son of President Joe Biden, has become a figure with intense right-wing scrutiny over his business dealings and unsubstantiated claims his father was involved in such dealings while holding office. The House GOP has repeatedly pledged to launch investigations into his conduct once in power. The team that is assembling to combat these potential investigations involves Kevin Morris, a lawyer friend of Hunter Biden. Morris discussed numerous possibilities, included defamation lawsuits that could be leveled against conservative entities and individuals, including Fox News, Rudy Giuliani, and Eric Trump. Hunter Biden himself was not present at the meeting, but called it briefly to offer input. In addition to working with Morris and others, he's hired 2 lawyers to handle potential future legal matters. Chris Clark has been brought in to handle matters related to federal criminal investigations into Biden's business dealings. Joshua Levy will handle matters relating to House investigations. The White House has maintained that Hunter is a private citizen and an inappropriate target for such investigations. The White House has said the president loves his son and is proud he has overcome his addiction and is moving forward with his life. Congressional Republicans' politically motivated partisan attacks on the president and his family are rooted in nonsensical conspiracy theories and do nothing to address the real issues Americans care about, end quote. And that is by Ian Sams, the lead White House spokesperson for oversight and investigations. And he's quoted as saying that to the Post. So Hunter Biden's past troubles were put under spotlight by Elon Musk when Musk got a hold of Twitter. And Twitter documents supposedly show that Biden's presidential campaign reached out to Twitter to encourage removal of several tweets. Again, though, that's a campaign. That is not the administration. That is not the president himself as vice president. That is his campaign. The reporters revealed that these tweets included sexually intimate personal photos of Hunter Biden, complicating conservative arguments that their removal constituted government interference in free speech, as revenge porn materials violate the policies of most social media platforms. Not to mention the fact that Republicans are always saying, we don't want to see porn in all of the social media. And they're always saying, we don't want this or want that. Nobody should be doing this or that. And wasn't it the former First Lady's thing to try to stop bullying? Well, revenge porn is bullying. So she should be stopping the bullying by her party to try to print photos of the son of this president. So that's that article. This one is about Eric Trump. Andrea's just sent me another one, so I'll send that over to you before I start this one. Okay. So this is another one, Eric Trump. All right, go back to my screen. Okay, so this is from Ron Filipowski through Andrea. Eric Trump's prophet has received another message from God. God says everything on Adam Schiff's computer is about to be made public. Brazil's election will be overturned. Our election will be overturned and Trump restored to the presidency very soon, saith the Lord. So that is the write-up. Let's pause this, scroll it back. Blow it up. And let's see what Eric Trump's prophet has to say in her own words.
All is coming to an explosive end. My children, you are about to hear me roar, and that roar will destroy the plans your enemies just made against you that will never come to pass. I am your victory, and you will soon experience it. Everything on your computer is about to be released that you thought was deleted, but what?
Got to stop her here. Do you all notice she's like taking a page from Junior? You can tell she's looking up at her computer and the post-it notes. So, in case you lost your train of thought, let's start
All
over.
is coming to an explosive end. My children, you are about to hear me roar, and that roar will destroy the plans your enemies just made against you that will never come to pass. I am your victory, and you will soon experience it. Everything on your computer is about to be released that you thought was deleted, but wasn't deleted at all. So, Adam, prepare for your sudden departure from your position because it's coming, saith the Lord of hosts.
So she's pretends to speak for the Lord. She says that everything's gonna be revealed. That's kind of like shades of Paula White, you know, victory and all will be revealed. I hear Paula White talking when she's talking. Scroll it back a little bit.
Of hosts. Something significant.
Okay, what did she
Saith the
say
Lord
there?
of hosts.
Okay, so she actually had to pause because she's reading her stuff. So she actually has to go here. Let's see what she's saying.
So, Adam, prepare for your sudden departure from your position because it's coming, saith the Lord of hosts.
So she goes, saith the Lord of hosts. She meant to say, saith the Lord God of hosts. But she didn't even get all the words in. Oh my God. Oh, what a mess up. She's supposed to be a prophet, a preacher, whatever, and she can't even like say all the words that she's supposed to say.
Something significant is about to take place in Brazil. I told you before that an overturning of their election is about to be seen, and they are not the only ones who will experience this.
I love your reaction, Benny Loco. It's my own. I would love to see these fuckers struck down by lightning. So would I. Doesn't the Bible actually say that if you misspeak, you're supposed to get struck down by lightning or something to that effect?
Brace for what will take place to overturn this election in the land of my eagle. Yes, this is coming, and yes, this is possible, saith the Lord.
In the land of my eagle. I don't think she knows that she's talking about the land of the eagle, but I do think that an eagle might be involved in what she's doing here. I think the eagle might have dropped something on her head. You want to care to guess what I mean?
Of hosts. The Biden's unmasking is about to begin, so enjoy the show. My children, all who have been wearing masks will be seen wearing them no more. All is coming to an
Oh my God. Oh God. Oh my God. Where did they find this prophet? At the dollar store? Oh my God. Where do they find these people? Where do they find them? Okay, so this is from Louis C. Jr. I'm trying to say his name. And this is a headline. And it says the following. It says the Libyan accused in Lockerbie bombing now in American custody. Shows the Libyan accused in Lockerbie bombing now in American custody. So this is from Newsbreak. Let's see if we can open that. Oops. Libyan accused in Lockerbie bombing now in American custody. Luis from chat. Yes, I thought that was possibly Luis from chat. Okay. The article. Libyan intelligence official accused of making the bomb that brought down Pan American Flight 103 in Lockerbie, Scotland in 88 in an international act of terrorism has been taken into U.S. custody and will face federal charges in Washington, the Justice Department said on Sunday. Abu Aguila Mohammed Masood Khair al-Marimi is a milestone in the decades-old investigation into an attack that killed 259 people in the air and 11 on the ground. American authorities in December 2020 announced charges against Mossad, who was in Libyan custody at the time. Though he is the third Libyan intelligence official charged in U.S. in connection with the attack, he would be the first to appear in an American courtroom for prosecution. The New York-bound Pan Am flight exploded over Lockerbie less than an hour after takeoff from London on December 21st, 1988, with citizens from 21 different countries killed, 190 Americans on board, 35 Syracuse University students who were going home for Christmas. The bombing laid bare the threat of international terrorism more than a decade before September 11 attacks, and it produced global investigations and punishing sanctions while spurring demands for accountability from victims of those killed. The university chancellor, Kent Severud, said in a statement that the arrest was a significant development in the long process to bring those responsible for this despicable act to justice. Stephanie Bernstein, whose husband Michael was among the victims. He was a Justice Department official returning on a flight from government business, said the news was surreal because there have been times in the past 2 years when victims' families have been told that it looks promising only to find it was not the case. She continued, at first I thought I was dreaming when I was told that it had happened, but it happened, and I'm incredibly grateful that this man will be tried in the United States. The announcement of the charges came on the 32nd anniversary of the bombing and came from William Barr, of all people. And he was the one in the 1990s who gave out the initial 2 charges against the other Libyan intelligence officials. Libyan government balked at turning over the 2 men, Abdel Bassat Ali al-Migrali and Lamin Khalifa Fima, before ultimately surrendering them for prosecution before a panel of Scottish judges sitting in the Netherlands as part of a special arrangement. Justice Department said Mossad would appear soon in federal court in Washington, where he faces 2 criminal counts related to explosion. They did not explain how he became taken in by U.S. custody. Libyan news reported that he was kidnapped by armed men November 16th from his residence in Tripoli and cited Tripoli authorities of being silent on the abduction. Nagila Mangoush, the foreign minister for Tripoli, told a BBC interviewer that he was very open in terms to collaboration on the matter. Torn by civil war since 2011, Libya is divided into rival governments. A breakthrough came back in 2017 when they received a copy of an interview by him. In the interview, he admitted building the bomb. The affidavit states that he told Libyan law enforcement he fled to Malta to meet with the others. And that he was instructed so that it would explode 11 hours later. And then he flew to Tripoli. Al-Magri was convicted in Netherlands while Fuma was acquitted of all charges. Al-Magri was given a life sentence, but Scottish authorities released him on humanitarian grounds in 2009 after he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. He died in Tripoli, protesting his innocence. When Barr announced the charges against him, Barr said U.S. and Scotland would use every feasible and appropriate means to bring him to trial. Barr said, recently, at long last, this man responsible for killing Americans and many others will be subject to justice for his crime. Oh, he said that 2 years ago, excuse me. In Scotland's Crown Office and Prosecutor Fiscal Service on Sunday announced the arrest as well, saying in a statement that families of those killed in the Lockerbie bombing have been told that the suspect is in U.S. custody. And the statement adds that Scottish prosecutors and police working with UK government and US colleagues will continue to pursue this investigation with the sole aim of bringing those who acted along with Al-Magri to justice. So, again, that is good news, great news. Hopefully he receives the kind of prosecution that he should get. Hopefully he's convicted. I think I've gotten a few more from Andrea. Let me check and see. Okay, a couple more came in, and we have one from earlier. So we have at least 3 coming in from Andrea. So I'll quickly send those over. Okay. This next story is about Jim Jordan. Okay. Representative Jim Jordan thinks he's going to spend 2 years lying about the President of the United States, Joe Biden. Sorry, Jim, we have other plans for you, and it looks like this. So this is a video. From MSNBC.
Earlier this week, you faced off with GOP Representative Jim Jordan. Let's take a listen.
Well, Mr. Jordan's announced Donald Trump's termination of the Constitution.
President Trump has clarified his comments regarding the Constitution. He put out another post, I think, a day or so later, maybe the next day, I can't recall. And everyone knows President Trump, there's no way this guy's anti-Semitic. So,
and do you denounce your tweet praising Kanye West?
That tweet was not our account, and that tweet's been removed.
I wonder, Congressman, how you're preparing for a Republican-led Judiciary Committee.
Well, we've seen this play before, right? In 2016, they tried to Benghazi Secretary Clinton, and it was effective, and it weakened her. And, we're going to go into this knowing that they're going to use the Judiciary and Oversight Committee to try and dirty up Joe Biden so that he hobbles in the 2024 reelection. So our committee members will stand in the breach. And to be effective, I think first we must keep the Republicans on their heels as far as credibility, just as I did there, call them out to show that they have no credibility. That was their account. They deleted it. To make sure that we defend and debunk the lies about the Biden administration, and then to pivot to that these guys promised you lower gas, lower grocery costs, and instead you're getting Hunter Biden's laptop. And this is what we would do for you as far as lowering the costs and addressing inflation.
Okay, so let me bring myself back in. So let me solo myself. I think that there was a little bit of hesitation on that video, so I'll probably just quickly repeat.
Earlier this week, you faced off with GOP Representative Jim Jordan. Let's take a listen.
Well, Mr. Jordan's announced Donald Trump's termination of the Constitution.
President Trump has clarified his comments regarding the Constitution. He put out another post, I think a day or so later, maybe the next day, I can't recall. And everyone knows President Trump, there's no way this guy's anti-Semitic. So
and do you denounce your tweet praising Kanye West?
That tweet was not our account, and that tweet's been removed.
I wonder, Congressman, how you're preparing for a Republican-led Judiciary Committee.
Well, we've seen this play before, right? In 2016.
Okay, I just wanted you to hear the full comments that were made because I was doing something, sending the next link across computers, and that kind of like buffer there for a second. So, and seems like video is buffering right now. So I hope it's not buffering for you. Okay, there was probably just an internet bump there. So if there was an internet bump and you didn't hear that last video or whatever, just tell me to repeat it. But anyway, that Jordan is trying to, cover for Donald Trump as usual. This is a similar topic to earlier. So, January 6th committee debates criminal referrals for Trump, Meadows, Eastman, Clark, and Giuliani. And this is Glenn Kirshner's video. So, stop this, bring it back. So it'll start from the beginning. Full screen it. Solo it.
So friends, the January 6th committee's work is winding down. The committee is working on its final report, and we know there will be tons of information in there about the evidence their investigation uncovered. But there's still the open question of whether the committee will make formal criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. And if they do, who will they refer? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So the January 6th House Select Committee, you know the one, the committee investigating the insurrection, the committee investigating the attack that Donald Trump organized, incited, and then launched on the U.S. Capitol in an effort to stop the certification of Joe Biden's election win. Yeah, that committee, the J6 committee's work is coming to a conclusion, or maybe we should call it a crescendo. And we will soon see the committee's final report. And it will include the evidence that the committee uncovered and developed through the testimony of more than 1,000 witnesses, 1 million plus documents, countless pieces of evidence. And one of the questions that has been a hot topic in recent weeks is whether the January 6th committee will make formal criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. And if so, who will they refer for prosecution? Here is today's reporting on that topic by CNN. Headline, January 6th committee to discuss criminal referrals at Sunday meeting. And that article begins, the House Select Committee investigating the January 6, 2021 insurrection will meet on Sunday to discuss criminal referrals, panel member Representative Adam Schiff said. The panel is weighing criminal referrals for former President Donald Trump and a number of other individuals, sources say, including former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, right-wing lawyer John Eastman, former Justice Department official Jeffrey Clark, and Trump's former lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, as CNN previously reported. While the referrals would largely be symbolic in nature, as the Justice Department has already undertaken a sprawling investigation into the U.S. Capitol attack and efforts to overturn the 2020 election, committee members have stressed that the move serves as a way to document their views for the record. Representative Schiff stressed his view that criminal referrals from the committee make an important statement, not a political one, but a statement about the evidence of an attack on the institutions of our democracy and the peaceful transfer of power that Congress, examining an attack on itself, is willing to report criminality. Schiff continued, so I think it's an important decision in its own right if we go forward with it, he said, and one that the Department of Justice ought to give due consideration to. So let's quickly work our way through 3 questions. 1, what is a criminal referral? 2, what form will it take? What is it likely to look like if Congress makes a criminal referral to the Department of Justice? And 3, what impact, if any, will a criminal referral by Congress have on the Department of Justice? So the first question, what is a criminal referral? A criminal referral is nothing more than one co-equal branch of government, Congress, after conducting an investigation, telling another co-equal branch of government, the executive branch, the Department of Justice, we conducted this investigation. We took the testimony of lots of witnesses, subpoenaed lots of documents, accumulated lots of evidence, and our investigation revealed that certain people committed certain crimes in violation of the laws of the United States. So we are referring those people, together with this evidence, to the Department of Justice, because we, Congress, can't prosecute anybody. Only the executive branch can, the Department of Justice. So we are referring this person or these people, based on what we learned during our investigation, for criminal investigation and, if appropriate, prosecution. In a nutshell, that's a criminal referral. Second question, what might a criminal referral look like? What form might it take? I want to actually skip over question 2 and go to question 3, because I think our discussion of question 3 will help answer question 2. What will it look like? What form will it take? So question 3 is, what impact, if any, will a criminal referral from Congress have on the Department of Justice? So first of all, I suggest it's impossible to precisely answer the question, how might a criminal referral from Congress impact the thinking over at the Department of Justice? Now, mind you, that was my professional home for nearly a quarter of a century. I know lots of the people who still work there. They're my friends, my former colleagues. And This probably won't surprise you, but just about everybody who works at the Department of Justice is a human being. And it's very hard to completely ignore a recommendation from a co-equal branch of government that, hey, we conducted this lengthy, exhaustive, historic investigation. We have all of this evidence now. We've documented it. And it tends to show certain people committed offenses against the United States. And Department of Justice, we're presenting it all to you now, and we are urging you, we are recommending that you pursue this matter and these people criminally. You know, I can tell you as a former career prosecutor, could I completely divorce that from my assessment of whether the evidence supports bringing charges or not? Hard to do. I mean, we try to keep our prosecutorial blinders on when it comes to outside influence. So here's one of the important principles that I think can serve as a guidepost to, you know, trying to answer the question, what impact might it have on the Department of Justice? Prosecutors exercise independent prosecutorial discretion. What does that mean? It means that I didn't pay attention to outside influences when day in and day out, particularly as chief of the homicide section at the DC U.S. Attorney's Office, I had to make prosecutorial decisions, whether to approve indictments or decline to approve indictments. And there was always lots of potential outside influence and voices and opinions and recommendations on that question. But prosecutors really do need to try to tune all that out and make their prosecutorial decisions based solely on the evidence that has been developed during the course of a grand jury investigation. So prosecutors will, I'm quite sure, accept the information from Congress. They will certainly accept the evidence, the transcripts, the documents, the items of evidence that were subpoenaed by the J6 committee, because evidence is evidence from whatever source. They'll have to test it to make sure it's sound, it's reliable, it's accurate, it's truthful. I suspect those 1,000+ transcripts that Congress is preparing to deliver to the Department of Justice, and you may have heard they're also going to deliver them to we the people. They're going to disclose them all. That's what the J6 committee has promised us. But when those transcripts are delivered to DOJ, DOJ will have lots of follow-up to do, because you can't blindly rely on a transcript that is handed to you. You have to follow up with the witness. So there's still a lot of work ahead for the Department of Justice. But when a co-equal branch of government has conducted this kind of exhaustive investigation and documented its investigative efforts and offers its conclusions in the form of a recommendation that certain people broke the law and should be pursued criminally, friends, that cannot help but impact the Department of Justice. To turn a completely blind eye to that, I think, would be foolish and foolhardy, and frankly would do a disservice to a co-equal branch of government. So let's now go back to question 2, because I think it will help inform also what we've just discussed about question 3. Question 2, what form will it take? Here's the good news, friends. We already discussed how all the evidence is going to go over, but that's not the criminal referral part. The criminal referral part is the J6 committee assimilating all the evidence and information and then making a recommendation to DOJ about who may have committed which federal crimes. And that's where I think the nature of the January 6th investigative committee comes in. You've heard me talk about this before, and this gives me great comfort. The head of the J6 investigative committee is a former RICO prosecutor from my old office, the DC U.S. Attorney's Office, named Tim Heafy. When he was named as chief investigative counsel, he went about assembling a team. And that team consists of former federal prosecutors who know their way around a criminal investigation, who know how to document evidence through the testimony of witnesses and through subpoenaing documents and other evidence. And then they know how to put together a report that sets out not only here's who testified and here's the documents we subpoenaed, but how you can assimilate it all and how you should read that evidence with respect to the criminal statutes that are on the books. So I have a feeling the form it will take is going to be a very compelling report setting out precisely not only who did what, but how who did what satisfies the elements of particular crimes. So I have a feeling the report that the J6 committee is about to disclose to the American people is going to be a really compelling narrative about precisely why the evidence that the J6 committee has amassed proves, indeed beyond a reasonable doubt, that crimes were committed. So friends, to sum up, the form of the criminal referrals, and more broadly, the form of the final report that is about to be issued by the J6 committee, can't help but impact the Department of Justice if the report contains the kind of compelling narrative that sets out in great detail the evidence and how that evidence satisfies the elements of particular crimes, how that evidence shows, proves that particular people committed particular federal crimes. Because once that's in the public square, and once that's in the hands of Department of Justice prosecutors, it can't help but have an impact. And I think it will move the needle significantly in the direction of indictments. And that's a good thing, because justice matters. Hang in there, friends. As always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.
Okay, so that was Glenn Kirshner with our video that was very informative. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Okay, so that was Glenn Kirshner. And so, sorry, apologies. I thought my microphone was muted. So if you heard the noises of me drinking, sorry about that. So get back to the next topic. Okay. There's another one here by Glenn Kirshner. He says there's, oops. Okay, not solo. He says there's no justice if there's not equal justice. Trump would be arrested or indicted if he was anyone else. So is that a video? No, it's a Newsweek article. Okay. Article by Andrew Stanton. Today's date, 11 o'clock Eastern this morning. So Trump would have already been arrested or indicted if not for being a former president, said Glenn Kirshner. During his Justice Matters podcast on Saturday, Kershaw blasted what he views as an unequal treatment of Trump in the Department of Justice probe to whether he illegally took classified documents when he vacated the White House last year. Trump has faced the DOJ investigation for months after FBI agents in August raided his Mar-a-Lago property and seized the documents. Excuse me. Seized the documents. Where was I on? What line was I on? Which may have included another country's nuclear secrets. Trump has maintained his innocence, however, saying that he could declassify the documents without going through a formal declassification process. So the article says formal, but I think they mean formal declassification process. On Friday, DOJ prosecutors alleged that Trump is still holding on to some of the classified documents, defying orders to produce every single one he allegedly removed from the White House. They requested a federal judge to hold the ex-president in contempt over the documents, according to a Washington Post report. U.S. Judge Beryl Howell on Friday declined to do that, delivering a rare win for Trump's legal team after losses in several investigations. The decision allows Trump's team to avoid paying daily fines until he fully complies with the subpoenas. Kershaw defended Howell for not holding the former president in contempt, interpreting her decision as calling the DOJ to do its job. Instead, he blasted the department for allegedly handling Trump differently than it would any other private citizen. Kershaw said what they should have done was get a search warrant promptly, get all documents they could by searching Donald Trump's properties, arrest the perpetrator Donald Trump, continue to investigate, and then get supplemental search warrants and continue to try to collect up what Donald Trump has stolen. Kershaw accused the DOJ of putting Trump, quote, slightly above the law, and, quote, leaving them in an investigative quagmire. He also questioned the decision to request Judge Howell to force Trump's attorneys to appoint a records custodian to certify that he has produced all the alleged stolen documents, saying this is, quote, not the way criminal investigations work, end quote. DOJ has thus far been unwilling to do what it would have done had anyone else stolen those classified documents from the federal government. Kershaw said they would have arrested him and indicted them and done supplemental search warrants to figure out where the rest of the documents are. That's a direct quote. Meanwhile, additional classified documents were found in a storage unit connected to Trump. Former president wrote in a recent Truth Social post about the FBI seizing the original documents was illegal, calling on everything to be returned at once. Newsweek reached out for the president to give a comment. So did they reach out for the current president? No, they reached out to Trump to give a comment. Excuse me, I misspoke. So, okay. So, Glenn is absolutely right. Anybody else would have been prosecuted over such things. Here's another Mueller, she wrote, article. Breaking the special counsel investigation may result in charges within months, according to people familiar with parts of the probe. Special counsel Smith speeds ahead on criminal probes. So this is on CNN. This is from 5:41 p.m. today. This is a CNN article. Share this tab. Is this just a video? Newly appointed special counsel Jack Smith moving fast on a pair of criminal probes around Donald Trump that in recent months have focused on the former president's state of mind after the 2020 election, including what he knew about plans to impede the transfer of power. People familiar with the matter tell CNN. So curious, is this So this is a CNN legal analyst giving his opinion. Okay, that's what the video is. Though he remains in Europe recovering from a biking accident, Smith has made a series of high-profile moves since he was put in charge last month, including asking a federal judge to hold Trump in contempt for failing to comply with a subpoena ordering him to turn over records marked classified. Since Thanksgiving, Smith has brought a number of close Trump associates before a grand jury in Washington, including 2 former White House lawyers, 3 of Trump's closest aides, and his former speechwriter, Stephen Miller. He has also issued a flurry of subpoenas, including election officials in battleground states where Trump tried to overturn his loss in 2020. Smith takes over a staff that's already nearly twice the size of Robert Mueller's team of lawyers who worked on the Russia probe, a team of 20 prosecutors investigating Jan 6 in the effort to overturn the 2020 election are in the process moving to work under Smith, according to multiple people familiar with the team. He will take on national security investigators already working the probe into the potential mishandling of federal records taken to Mar-a-Lago after Trump left White House. Twin investigations have already established more evidence than Mueller started with, including a year-long financial probe that's largely flown under the radar. The analyst, Ellie Honig, who is a former federal prosecutor and CNN legal analyst, said Mueller was starting virtually from scratch, whereas Jack Smith is seemingly integrating on the fly into an active moving investigation. That's a quote. Smith also won't be constrained in the same way as Mueller, who deferred decisions on whether to charge Trump because he was sitting president. While Trump lambasted Smith's appointment on social media, some of the former president's attorneys think it could have been worse. According to people familiar with the matter, those lawyers maintain the former president is unlikely to be indicted. According to the 2 sources familiar, they believe Smith's appointment is a good thing because he is not emotionally attached to the original case and could look at it dispassionately and factually. The fact that they found a guy who's been in Europe for the past several years without his brain marinating in the Super Jan 6 coverage is a good thing, said the source. Others on Trump's team are concerned Smith's appointment signals a more aggressive stance from attorney Merrick Garland, characterizing him as a hitman who is likely to bring a prosecution. People familiar with their thinking said. On Friday, the Justice Department approached in Mar-a-Lago. Okay, that popped an ad in there. Popped an ad in there and moved everything, so I lost my place. And okay. Case hit a small bump with federal judge declining to hold Trump in contempt of court and urging DOJ and Trump's team to work out a resolution as investigators attempt to make sure all national security records are back in the possession of the federal government. Behind the scenes in separate sealed proceedings, Related to Jan 6, Smith has already told the federal court he is in charge of the investigation according to some of the sources. And while Trump's lawyers on Jan 6 probe have not been in touch directly with Smith at this point, according to some sources, they anticipate they will eventually speak with him once he returns to U.S. It's unclear how long Smith may continue to work before deciding on any charges in either probe. While both investigations may result in charges within months, Smith could still spend time organizing and expanding his team and continuing to pick through information that's been collected, according to people familiar with the parts of the probe. It could well be that Jack moves more quickly than Merrick Garland would and forces a decision to Merrick Garland's desk more quickly than it might have otherwise, said Honig. According to a handful of people familiar with the probe, there's still work to be done to centralize all moving parts of the large prosecution teams under the new special counsel's office. Smith is expected to set up a physical office for the two investigative teams from the downtown justice headquarters, as Mueller did for his probe, and as did John Durham, who is nearing the end of the examination of the 2016 Trump-Russia investigation. According to several people, with his appointment, Smith will operate more like a U.S. attorney, managing an existing team of career prosecutors already working on the cases and signing off on evidence that they bring him rather than as a de facto department head like Mueller, who tapped several lawyers from outside the Justice Department to pursue parts of the Russia investigation from scratch. Mueller also had his own set of legal advisors akin to shadow Justice Department appeals and policy team. Smith likely won't have the same setup, with lawyers from throughout the department assisting as needed, according to multiple people familiar with the office's development. Garland already turned to a longtime criminal appellate section leader, Patty Steimer, who retired earlier this year from DOJ to advise as consultant on Jan 6 investigations. Others from Steimer's former unit and other sections are likely to spearhead cases and policy issues as needed, in a departure from Mueller's soup to nuts approach of preparing for thorny constitutional issues and appeals in the Russia investigation, some of the sources said. A spokesman for the Justice Department didn't provide any comment for this story. Publicly released court findings have made clear that Trump is under investigation for mishandling of national security secrets. But the other investigative team looking at efforts to block the transfer of power from Trump to Joe Biden after 2020 election even had a year ago been given the green light by Justice Department to take a case all the way up to Trump if the evidence leads them there, according to sources. Work that's been led by U.S. District Attorney, DC U.S. Attorney's Office into political circles around Trump related to Jan 6 now moved to special counsel. Partly led by former Maryland-based prosecutor Thomas Windham, DOJ has added prosecutors to the Jan 6 team from all over the department in recent months. Windham and the rest are also expected to move over to the special counsel's office. Some, like Mary Dorman, a prosecutor who worked on several other Capitol riot cases, appear to be reorienting, according to court records, and the open Capitol riot cases. Another top prosecutor, J.P. Cooney, the former head of public correction in D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office, is overseeing significant financial probe that Smith will take on. Probe includes examining the possible misuse of political contributions, according to some of the sources. The D.C. Attorney's Office, before the special counsel arrival, had examined a potential financial crimes related to Jan 6 riot, including possible money laundering and support of rioters' hotel stays and bus trips. In recent months, the financial investigation has sought information about Trump's post-election Save America PAC and other funding of people who assisted Trump, according to subpoenas viewed by CNN. Financial investigation picked up steam as DOJ investigators enlisted cooperators months after the 2021 riot, one of the sources said in interviews with people in Trump's orbit. Some of the DOJ focus has been on the timeline leading up to Jan 6 and Trump's involvement, knowledge of events of that day. Trump's allies consistently maintain nothing Trump did related to election or to the Jan 6 crime. They suggest that if Trump were to face indictment, the bar to prove he committed a crime is extremely high, and the jury would hear he was getting conflicting advice from different lawyers. Trump allies point out White House counsel Pat Cipollone told Trump that Vice President Pence couldn't block the election certification on Jan 6, but Giuliani believed he could. Earlier this year, federal prosecutors were specifically asking witnesses whether there was a plan to steal the election and for Trump not to concede, according to the source. DOJ probe has evolved significantly during that time, but prosecutors are still focused on the core question of whether there was a plan to steal the election and Trump's understanding about the relevance of Jan 6. So, yeah, all that. That's a lot to digest. A lot of stuff to digest. It's after 10:30. This will probably be our final topic. Thank you again to Andrea for all these wonderful topics. This one is a personal interest type story, something pretty to look at for this time of the year. So this is London and Big Ben under the snow tonight. Something just beautiful to look at. It's a video, so I will rewind it, make it bigger. I guess there's no audio on that. Just a pretty video of Big Ben tonight in the snow. So that's pretty. Something pretty to end the show with. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the show. It was very pretty to end the show with. We had a multitude of topics tonight. Next week, we'll work on what we will do next week. We may have something special for you next week, or we may be preempted by the holidays, so we'll figure that out. But we are getting closer to the holiday season, so watch for the announcements, see what we're going to do next week, and keep tuning in to Freedom Speech and You. It's great to have you all here. It's great to have the wonderful mods that are here. And it's great to have the input of a fantastic producer, Andrea. So thank you very much to all of you for being here. Thank you very much to our mods. And thank you very much to Andrea, who contributes greatly to this show and makes sure that we stay on topic. And who is my voice behind the scenes when I make a little technical faux pas, like leaving my mic on while I'm drinking when I thought my mic was off. So thank you very much for that. We'll see you all on the next show. Have a wonderful evening. Enjoy whatever remains of your weekend and have a great week. Be safe. Enjoy the holiday season coming up. And we'll talk to you soon on Freedom, Speech, and You. And this is important. Please give us some ideas on what you want to talk about, okay? The show was originally conceived to bring your ideas to the forefront. So that was the idea behind the show. I believe you're enjoying this show because you haven't really pushed me with your ideas, but please bring them. Okay. Okay. So thank you so much. And that's the wrap, folks. Time to bring in the end of the show video.